My volume on. Didn't hear it say now recording. All right, here we are. Hi, and welcome to Mrs. PM Reads. I think I have a light on my porch that must turn on every time I come to read because this is the second time in a row I've had a neighbor mowing their lawn. So I will try to speak loudly so that you can hear me well. I do want to say, I'm recording now because I have a minute now. We all have very busy lives and we need to prioritize our time. And I thank you for being here with me right now. So let's spend some quality time together. Now, we are in part 4, section 9. And in the last video, basically, Ray had told the ghosts that he had most of his money in equipment and he wasn't doing well and he was going to lose the farm. And they all told him, hey, sell the machinery, buy horses, and we'll help you. That could be interesting. So that's where we're picking it up today. My head is filled with a wild vision of these men, right? Spirits out in the dew cool Iowa dawn, breaking the land, seeding and harrowing, black reins wrapped around their wrists, cussing their team on across the black field. Each man still dressed in his baseball uniform. I see them rumbling in on wagons and setting the sun behind them, the wagon boxes overflowing with golden corn. I see them tending the fields by day, like members of some religious group who are forbidden to use worldly machines, and at night filling in my baseball park for a rendezvous with stalled time. Their voices are rife with excitement. It would be like rent, says Joe. You done this for us, we'll pay you back. There is a current of assent. I think there was discussion in the last chapter that maybe the baseball field would not be available anymore if the farm got sold because they want to plow it under and then the spirits of past players won't be able to come back. So that's, I think, why they want to help. But can you do that? I say. I've never seen any of you anywhere except on the field. What do you become when you walk through that door in center field? The silence that follows is long and ominous. I feel like I have just stomped across an innocent child's game or broken a doll. We sleep, says Chick Gandil finally. And wait, says Happy Felch. And dream, says Joe Jackson. Oh, how we dream. He stops, the look of awe and rapture on his face, enough of an explanation. The magic has been broken. The other players edge toward the gate in center field. I remember horses, says Eddie again. You fellows have a right good idea. Let's go to the house, says Salinger, taking Eddie's arm and turning him around. There is an aura of mystery, a definite difference about the game to be played tonight. The opposing team, gray and ephemeral as dandelion fluff, does not consist of the usual opponents, who often appear to be identical to the players from the previous game, with only a change of uniform and adjusted batting stances. Fittingly, it is Eddie Schisms who first notices the difference. That's Three-Finger Brown, he says, pointing to the shadowy pitcher warming up on the sidelines. Check his number, he shouts. But none of us know Three-Finger Brown's number offhand. Look at the infield, Eddie crows. Tinker to Evers to Chance. Do you boys have any idea how lucky you are? It does seem to me that the cloud-like infielders have the bear cub insignia grinning from their ghostly uniforms. But what kind of game is it? Shoeless Joe avoids my questions when I lean down to talk to him. He doesn't reiterate what I already understand, that there are things it is better not to know, but changes the subject, discussing, among other things, Moonlight Graham's 300 batting average since he joined the team. As the game begins, Eddie gathers us around him like a group of disciples and regales us with the history of each Chicago Cub. He launches into baseball stories of all kinds, as if he were playing a game of free association. Got a daughter living in Seattle, I have. When I visited her, she took me to a game. Sent me to a game is more like it. She convinced a neighbor boy to drive me there and back by giving him a free ticket. That King Dome in Seattle is like playing baseball in your cellar. Why, they'd hit the ball toward first or third base, and it would hit a seam in the AstroTurf and skip off into a corner while the runner went tearing around the bases. And the sound doesn't carry. You can't hear the bat make contact, and even when the fans cheer, you can't hear them. It was like looking at a TV game with the sound turned down. He stops to chuckle, and his eyes take on their now familiar faraway expression. We had a shortstop when I was in the minors, can't remember his name, but he used to carry 12 rocks in his hip pocket, scatter them out when he left the field, and he'd pick them up when he came out for the next inning. He'd sit on the bench and watch the face of the shortstop when lazy grounders suddenly hopped over his head like pinpricked frogs. Stony, that was what he was called. I should have remembered. When I was growing up, Eddie goes on, why, I used to watch a catcher named Gordon Sims. Played for Omaha in, I think it was a Class A league. My uncle used to take me up there once or twice a summer. Oh, but that catcher was great. Built a low to the ground and hard as a locomotive. They used to tell stories about how once the pitcher forgot to duck a throw to second, and Sims threw the ball right through him and got the runner out. It might have been true because I've never seen anybody rifle the ball the way he could. My uncle said he was going to be in the bigs in no time, but he never made it. Just disappeared. The next summer, when we went to Omaha, we stayed in the same hotel as the Kansas City team, and my uncle buttonholed the Kansas City manager and asked if he knew what happened to Gordon Sims. You mean crazy Sims? Said the manager. He developed a thing about throwing the ball back to the pitcher, or to second base for that matter. He'd catch the ball, and then he wanted to hand the ball to a bat boy and have him walk it back to the mound. You can guess how long he lasted with that attitude. Not that they didn't try to talk him out of it. The Omaha team even paid to send him off to the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota for a week. He was back planting corn on his papa's farm in Iowa last anyone heard of him. Going into the 8th inning, the Cubs are ahead by 4 runs. But after a walk, a single, and Swede Risberg's double off 3-Finger Brown, the lead is reduced to 3. A walk to the catcher loads the bases, and Frank Chance, who manages as well as playing first base, dispatches 3-Finger Brown to the dugout and signals to the bullpen for a left-handed pitcher. My God, says Eddie Schisms as he watches the new pitcher lope in from right field. Eddie stands whacking his cane on the edge of the bleacher. Karen, who has been dozing in my lap, springs to life. Now pitching for the Chicago Cubs, Kid Skizzens. The words reverberate around the stadium as if it were a hollow gourd. I told you, Eddie says. Didn't I tell you? He looks around. Where is that brother-in-law of yours now? In front of us, Kid Skizzens, a swath of blonde hair cascading over his forehead, his body solid, pure, and hard as birch, warms up on the pitcher's mound. His style is awkward, his left arm whipping out toward first base like a shepherd's crook when he delivers the ball. As I watch, I remember Eddie telling us how left-handed pitchers came to be called southpaws. Back in the early days, Chicago's West Side Park, as you might expect, faced west. So anyone who pitched left-handed was doing so with his southmost hand, or southpaw. And that's all there was to it. Most mysterious sounding things have simple explanations. I look over at Jerry and assumes he shares the tingling feeling that dominates my senses. On the field, Eddie runs the count 3-2 on Buck Weaver, then walks him. The lead is narrowed to 2. I stare at Eddie Skizzens, sitting, clutching his serpent head cane, mouth open in awe, like an orphan sitting in front of a clown. Kid Skizzens throws 2 balls to Shoeless Joe. Throw a curve, says Eddie. Throw a curve, damn it, it's my best pitch. Kid Skizzens does throw the curve, and it hangs over the plate as big as a cantaloupe, and Joe swats it over the third baseman's head. It lands soft as a balloon along the foul line and lies there while the third baseman races back and the left fielder charges in. When the dust settles, Joe stands on second, Buck Weaver on third, and the score is tied. Chance instructs Kid Skizzens to walk Freddie McMullen to load the bases. Buzzard's luck, says Eddie. He can't kill nothing, and nothing will die for him. For a second, it looks as if the strategy of loading the bases to make a force play possible at every base has paid off. With the count 2-2, Chick Gandil wraps the ball sharply, but it takes one hop and ends up in Kid Skizzens' glove. Noisy Kling, the Cub catcher, stands solid as an iron statue on home plate, his glove extended, waiting for the ball and the force out, waiting to double up Gandil at first. But Kid Skizzens is not thinking. He has already turned to look at second where he has a play, but instead of throwing, he looks back at first, then to second again, where it is now too late to force McMullen. He desperately looks at first again and throws, but too late to catch the speeding Gandil. Everyone is safe, and the Cubs trail. The catcher is still standing on home with his glove extended. He kicks the dust disgustedly and yells towards the pitcher's mound. Frank Chance says a couple of words to Kid Skizzens, and the pitcher's head snaps straight, as if he has taken a jab to the chin. On the bleacher, Eddie pulls his cap lower over his eyes and concentrates. The next batter, Happy Felch, drives the ball deep to left center field on the first pitch. Go for it. Damn you, stretch your legs, shouts Eddie, who stands suddenly, his hair escaping from under his cap. The hair is yellow-white like an old dog's. The center fielder can't reach the ball, and it rolls to the wall as Happy Felch slices around the bases, pulling in at third to stand up. Kid Skizzens stands dejectedly on the mound. He has not even backed up the play at third. Frank Chance does not walk to the mound. He just signals for a right-hander from the bullpen and points to the dugout. Kid Skizzens walks off the field, head bowed, amid occasional boos and a smattering of half-hearted applause. As Kid Skizzens slumps onto the bench in the dugout, Eddie Skizzens sinks slowly to his bleacher seat, looking devastated. After the game, Eddie disappears into his room and does not come out until nearly noon the next day. And then his voice is hollow if he asks me if I will drive him to Iowa City. As he gets in and out of the car, his body makes dry sounds like pages of newspaper in a breeze. We make 2 or 3 stops in Iowa City, ending up at his apartment where I expect him to say goodbye. Instead, he goes in and returns with a shopping bag crammed with clothes, carrying his overcoat over his arm. Dusk and the trappings of magic have not yet lowered onto the and around, not onto the. Ready? Let's try that again. Dusk and the trappings of magic have not yet lowered onto and around my ballpark. The Iowa wind dominates today. The corn stalks bend ominously, rustling like plastic pom-poms. The wind is stroking, gusting, warm, living, a pervasive sign. As I approach the field, I see Eddie Skizzens standing alone on the bleacher. He has taken off his cap and is facing into the wind. His hair blown back like snow drifted against a fence. He is speaking, gesturing alternately with his free hand and the hand holding the serpent-headed cane. Even though the wind is dry and toast warm, I see that Eddie is wearing the same sleek gray overcoat he wore when I first picked him up on the street in Iowa City. But under the coat, he is wearing his Chicago Cub uniform, the material new as white envelopes, the blue stripes looking as if they have been freshly drawn on by felt pen. I stand along the left field line and stare up at him. He gestures broadly, making a point, but the wind floats his words away. Suddenly, as if the park has been inundated with butterflies and flower petals, the scene changes. The grandstands and floodlights appear, and the players file in through the gate in the center field wall. They materialize out of the cornfield as if from some unseen locker. The sounds and smells of baseball are all about me. I peek over my shoulder and see that Richard has been trailing me, that Jerry and Annie and Karen are crossing from the house to the ballpark. Eddie leans down and whacks his cane on the edge of a board to attract Shoeless Joe's attention. He speaks briefly with Joe, who in turn calls the other players closer. Eventually, we all gather on the left field grass, staring up at Eddie, standing on the bleacher, wild and windblown, looking for all the world like an Old Testament prophet on the side of a mountain. I take the word of baseball and begin to talk it. I begin to speak it. I begin to live it. The word is baseball. Say it after me, says Eddie Skizzens and raises his arms. The word is baseball, we barely whisper. Say it out loud, exhorts Eddie. The word is baseball, we say louder, but still self-consciously. I look down at Annie, who shrugs her shoulders. Karen claps her hands as the rhythm of Eddie's voice flows into her blood. The baseball players exchange aggrieved glances. The word is what? Baseball is what? Baseball is what? As his voice rises, so do ours. Baseball! He pauses dramatically. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? His voice is filled with evangelical fever. fervor. Can you imagine walking around with the very word of baseball enshrined inside you? Because the word of salvation is baseball. It gets inside you, inside me. And the words that I speak are spirit and are baseball. He shakes his head like a fundamentalist who can quote chapter and verse for every occasion. The word healed them and delivered them from destruction. The word makes the storm a calm, so that the waves thereof are still. He looks around wildly. Your mother should be here, I whisper to Annie. She digs her small elbow into my ribs. As you begin to speak the word of baseball, as you speak it to men and women, you are going to find that these men and women are going to be changed by that life flow, by the loving word of baseball. Whenever the word baseball is brought upon the scene, something happens. You can't go under your own power, under your own light, your own strength, and accept to accomplish what baseball can accomplish. We have to have the word within us. I say you must get the word of baseball within you, within us, and let it dwell within you richly, so that when you walk out in the world and meet a man or woman, you can speak the word of baseball, not because you've heard someone else speak it, because it is alive within you. Okay. And I think we're in the middle of his little speech, but that's time kind of middle of the stopping section. And so we will have to finish his little spiel at our next video. And I lost my place. But all right, you guys, I'm not perfect. I hate to tell you, but you're not perfect either. We are all human. Even the ghosts were making mistakes. So it's all good. It's all going to be okay. I thank you for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.